I want you to close your eyes for a moment. I want you to picture a child, 7 years old, small for her age, always had been, since the day she arrived in the world 6 weeks. Early and spent, her first days in a hospital incubator with wires attached to her that were thinner than my fingers. She had fought her way into the world with a determination that had made every nurse on the ward stop and take notice. She had her father's eyes and my stubbornness, and a way of loving people, completely, unconditionally, without reservation, that I have never seen in anyone else. Her name is Lily, and every Saturday morning for 52 weeks, 1 full year, she stood in the arrivals terminal of an airport holding a hand-painted sign. The sign said, "Welcome home, Mom." She made a new one every week. I know this because her grandmother, my mother, the woman who drove her there every Saturday and stood beside her and held her hand, kept every single one. 52 signs, 52 Saturdays, 52 weeks of a 7-year-old girl standing in an arrivals terminal looking at every face that came through those doors. I was not behind those doors, not once, not for a single one of those 52 Saturdays. And the reason I was not there, the reason my daughter stood in that airport week after week with her painted sign and her father's eyes and my stubborn heart, is the story I need to tell you today. My name is Rachel. I was 34 years old, a staff sergeant in the United States Army. I had served for 9 years, 3 deployments, 2 commendations, a record I was proud of in the particular, quiet way of someone who does not need other people to know how hard they have worked. I had a husband named David. We had been married for 10 years. We had Lily, our miracle baby, our 6 weeks early fighter, and a home. I thought of every single day I was away from it. I thought of David every day, of his steadiness, of the way he had always been the anchor, the one who stayed, the one who managed, the one who held everything together while I was deployed. I trusted him completely. With my daughter, with my home, with the life we had built together across 10 years and 3 deployments and every difficulty that military marriage asks of 2 people. I trusted him the way you trust someone who has never given you a reason not to. The 3rd deployment was supposed to be 14 months. It became 22. An extension, the kind that comes without warning, that arrives as an order and not a request, that cannot be negotiated or declined. I called David from a satellite phone in a tent and told him. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "We'll be here. Come home safe." That was the last honest conversation we had. I did not know that for a long time. I found out on a Saturday morning. Not at the airport. I was not at the airport. I was 6,000 miles away, sitting in a communications tent, on a video call with my mother. My mother, who had been driving Lily to that airport every Saturday for 11 months by that point, looked at me through a screen with an expression I had never seen on her face before, and she told me what my daughter had been doing every Saturday for almost a year. I could not speak for a long time. "She makes a new sign every week," my mother said. Her voice was careful, steady in the way of someone who is holding something very heavy and does not want to drop it. She gets up early. She makes the sign herself. She asks me every Friday night if this might be the Saturday. "You come through those doors." I pressed my hand against my mouth. "Does she know I can't?" I started. "She knows you can't come yet," my mother said. "She knows the deployment was extended. She knows it is not your choice." A pause. "She goes anyway, because she says that when you do come home, she wants you to see her there. She wants the first thing you see to be her face and her sign." I cried for a long time after that call ended. Not the quiet kind, the other kind. And when I was done, when there was nothing left, I made a decision. I was coming home. Not yet, I could not come home yet. The orders were the orders, and I had always understood that. But I was coming home with my eyes open. I was coming home having asked the questions I had been not asking for 22 months. Because something in my mother's voice, underneath the careful steadiness, underneath the story of Lily and her signs, had told me there was something else. Something she was not ready to say. And I was going to find out what it was before I walked through those doors. If your heart is already breaking, stay with me. Subscribe to this channel right now, because what I found out before I came home, and what I saw when I finally walked through those airport doors, is something I have carried for 2 years, and today I am putting it down. I started asking questions carefully, not of David, not yet, of my mother, of my oldest friend back home, a woman named Susan who had known both David and me since before we were married and who had, in 2 separate emails over the past year, said things I had read and then told myself I was misreading. I called Susan on a Tuesday evening. Direct, no preamble. "Tell me," I said. "Whatever you have been not telling me. Tell me now." There was a long silence. "Rachel," she said, "I didn't want to do this while you were deployed. I didn't want to be the reason you were distracted over there. I'm asking you now," I said. "Tell me." She told me David had been seeing someone, not recently, not in the past few months, for approximately 14 months, beginning, Susan believed, around the time the deployment was extended. Her name was Melissa. She was someone from his workplace, someone Susan had seen them together, at a restaurant, at a neighborhood event in ways that were taken individually explainable and taken together not. "Has she been in my house?" I said. A pause that told me everything. "I don't know for certain," Susan said. "Has Lily met her?" Another pause. "I don't know," Susan said. And in her voice, the careful, pained quality of it, I understood that she did know, or suspected, and could not bring herself to say it directly. I thanked her. I told her she had done the right thing. I meant it imperfectly, in the complicated way of someone who is grateful for information they also wish they had never received. I spent 3 days deciding what to do with what I knew. I had 2 months left of deployment, 2 months of orders I could not change, of a situation I could not leave, of a distance I could not close no matter how urgently I needed to. I had a daughter who had been standing in an airport every Saturday for almost a year, and I had a husband who had, while I was serving, while I was 6,000 miles away, following orders, made choices in the home. I thought of every day. I did not confront David by phone. I want to be clear about that. Not because I lack the words, but because I understood with a certainty I cannot fully explain that this conversation needed to happen in person, face to face, in the same room, without the distance of a satellite connection that made everything feel slightly unreal. I waited 2 months. 2 months of video calls with David that I conducted with a steadiness that cost me more than I can adequately describe. 2 months of watching his face, the face of a man who did not know that I knew, and feeling the particular grief of seeing someone you love clearly for the first time. 2 months of video calls with Lily that I lived for, her face on the screen, her updates about school and her best friend, and the cat we had gotten before my deployment and the sign she was working on for the following Saturday. "I'm making it bigger this week," she told me, 11 days before I came home. "So you can see it from far away when you come through the doors." I managed to hold myself together until the call ended. Then I went outside and stood in the dark for a long time. My return date was a Thursday. I had not told David the exact date. I had told him the approximate week, the way you do when dates are subject to change, and you do not want to create an expectation that logistics might not honor. What I had not told him was that my mother knew the exact date, and that she and Lily would be at the airport on a Thursday, not a Saturday, because I was not willing to make my daughter wait one more Saturday. I came through those doors on a Thursday morning at 9:47 a.m. I was carrying my pack. I was in uniform. I had not slept properly in 36 hours, and I was aware, in the distant way of someone running on something beyond ordinary energy, that I looked exactly like someone who had been traveling for a very long time. I came through those doors and I stopped, because she was there. Lily, 7 years old, almost 8 now. I had missed the birthday. I had missed it, and I would carry that always. She was standing 20 feet away with a sign that was, as she had promised, bigger than the others. It said, "Welcome home, Mom." I never stopped waiting. She saw me at the same moment I saw her, and she ran. I dropped my pack. I went to my knees, not deliberately. My legs simply did what they did. And she ran into my arms, and I held her, and she held me, and we stayed like that on the floor of that arrivals terminal while people moved around us and my mother stood nearby, crying in the quiet way she has always cried, and I breathed my daughter in and felt, for the first time in 22 months, that I was somewhere real. I held her for a long time. When I finally stood up, when Lily had been persuaded, gently, to release her grip enough for me to get to my feet, my mother looked at me over her head. And I looked back at her, and we understood each other completely without saying anything. David was not at the airport. He had not known the exact day. He had known the approximate week. I had told him Thursday or Friday, probably subject to change. He had planned to be there Friday. I had known this. I had chosen Thursday, not to avoid him, not yet, but because I had needed him this first moment to be exactly what it was. My daughter, my mother, the sign, the floor of the arrivals terminal. Nothing complicated, nothing I would have to manage, just this. David found out I was home when Lily called him from my mother's car. "Daddy, Mommy's here!" She came today. I heard his voice through the phone, the surprise in it, the particular recalibration of someone adjusting rapidly to an unexpected timeline. He was at my mother's house within the hour. We did not have the conversation that day, or the next. I spent those first days with Lily, entirely, deliberately, without apology. I read to her at bedtime. I took her to school. I sat in the kitchen while she did homework and felt, in the particular way of someone who has been away too long, the miracle of ordinary things. On the fourth day, a Sunday, quiet, Lily at a friend's house, David and I sat across from each other in our kitchen. I did not have a folder. I did not have documentation. I had 2 months of knowing, and Susan's account, and the particular clarity of someone who has had a very long time to decide what they want to say. I told him what I knew, calmly, completely. He confirmed it. All of it. The 14 months. Melissa. The choices made in the home. I had thought of every day for 22 months. And then he said something I had not expected. "I didn't think you were coming back," he said. I hoped, but the extension and then another extension, and I felt like I was already alone, like I had already lost you. Not to someone else, just to the distance. To all of it. I looked at him for a long time. Lily stood in that airport, I said. Every Saturday. For a year, with a sign. He closed his eyes. "I know," he said. "She never stopped believing I was coming back," I said. "She is 7 years old, and she never stopped." He had no answer for that. We separated 3 months after I came home. Quietly, with Lily at the center of every decision. Her stability, her school, her relationships, her understanding that both of her parents loved her completely even as the structure around that love was changing. David is a present father. I want to say that clearly. The choices he made in my absence do not define his relationship with our daughter, and I have worked, genuinely, with real effort, not to let my grief about those choices contaminate what Lily has with him. She deserves both of us, fully, without the weight of our failure on her shoulders. I am stationed closer to home now. I see her every week. I go to her school events. I sat in the front row at her spring concert last month and cried in the way. I have learned to let myself cry, openly, without apology, because some things deserve tears and there is no strength in pretending otherwise. She is almost 10 now. She has her father's eyes in my stubborn heart, and a way of loving people, completely, unconditionally, without reservation, that I have never seen in anyone else. She still has the signs, all 52 of them. My mother kept everyone. They are in a box in Lily's room that she has decorated with stickers. Last year, on the anniversary of the day I came home, Lily made one more sign. She brought it to breakfast. She held it up across the kitchen table. It said, "You're home. I knew you would be." I looked at my daughter across the breakfast table, at her father's eyes and my stubborn heart, at the sign she had made, the 53rd sign, the one that was not for an airport but for a kitchen on an ordinary morning. And I understood and completely, finally, that the most important thing I had ever done was not anything I had done in service. It was not any commendation or deployment or order followed. It was coming home to a child who had never stopped believing I would. Here is what 52 Saturdays and a hand-painted sign and a Thursday morning arrival taught me. The people who wait for you, who make the sign every week, who stand in the terminal every Saturday, who never stop believing you are coming, those people are what you are fighting for. And when you come home, however complicated home has become, however much has changed while you were away, you owe it to them to show up as completely as they waited. My daughter waited at the airport every week for a year. She held a sign that said, "Welcome home, Mom." And on a Thursday morning, Not a Saturday, but a Thursday. Because I was not willing to make her wait one more week. I came through those doors, and she ran, and I went to my knees, and I held on. If this story reached you, if it opened something, please share it right now with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel. Every week I bring you stories about the people who wait and the ones who finally come home. I am always listening,